Kopidana Balaba Grivardari Jaya Grivardari Kopidana Balaba Grivardari Jaya Grivardari Sodanandana Prahladananda Jaya Prahladananda Sodanandana Prahladananda Jaya Prahladananda Sodanandana Prahladananda Jaya Prahladananda Yamuna Dhiravarachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Dhiravarachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Kopidana Balaba Grivardari Jaya Grivardari Kopidana Balaba Grivardari Jaya Grivardari Sodanandana Prahladananda Jaya Prahladananda Sodanandana Prahladananda Jaya Prahladananda Yamuna Tiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Yamuna Tiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Yamuna Tiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupada Brahmhamsa Brahmadakasharya Asidhara Sadhu Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari all glories to the sound devotees all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Ranga Om Agana Timanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vidhamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Siddha Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitinanda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter, what's the chapter? 17. Maharaj Prithu becomes angry at the earth, text number 9. Maitreya Vacha Yadabhishika Yadabhishikta Pritur Anga Viprara Amantrityo Janatayas Chapala Janir Nirane Shiti Prishta Etya Shut Shama Deha Patim Abhyavochan Maitreya Vacha Yadabhishikta Pritur Anga Viprara Amantrito Janatayas Chabalaha Prajanirine Nirane Shiti Prishta Etya Uchama Deha Patim Abhyachavochan So Janataya Savala Nirande Viritya Yajamaya Piti Manojan Vavita Vita Angadeka Sabalaha Vibhuta Etya Udaya Meha Patima Vyota. Ladies, Maitreya Vacha, the great sage Maitreya said, Yada, when Abhishikta was enthroned, Prithu, King Prithu, Anga, my dear Vidura, Viprai, by the Brahmanas, Amantritaha was declared, Janataya of the people, Cha also, Palaha the protector, Praja the citizens, Nirane without being without food grains. Iti prishte, the surface of the globe. Etya, coming near. Shoot, by hunger. Shama, skinny. Deha, their bodies. Patim, to the protector. Abhyavochan, they said. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The great sage Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, at the time King Prithu was enthroned by the great sages and brahmanas and declared to be the protector of the citizens, there was a scarcity of food grains. The citizens actually became skinny due to starvation. Therefore, they came before the king and informed him of their real situation. Purport. Information is given herein concerning the selection of the king by the brahmanas. According to the Varnashram system, the brahmanas are considered to be the heads of the society and therefore to be situated in the topmost social position. The Varnashram Dharma, the institution of the 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams, is very scientifically designed. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Varnashram Dharma is not a man-made institution, but is God-made. In this narration, is clearly indicated that the brahmanas used to control the royal power. When an evil king like Vena ruled, the brahmanas would kill him through their Brahminical powers and select a proper ruler by testing his qualifications. In other words, the brahmanas, the intelligent men or great sages, who control the monarchical powers. Here we have an indication of how the brahmanas elected King Prithu to the throne as a protector of the citizens. The citizens, being skinny due to hunger, approached the king and informed him that necessary action should be taken. The structure of the Varnashram Dharma was so nice that the brahmanas would guide the head of state. The head of state would then give protection to the citizens. The Kshatriyas would take charge of protecting the people in general, and under the protection of the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas would protect the cows, produce food grains, and distribute them. Shudras, the working class, would help the higher 3 classes by manual labor. This is the perfect social system. Maitreya vacha yadabhishikta pratur anga viprar amantrito janatayastrabalaha praja nirane shiti prishta etya shut shama deha patim abhyavochan. The great sage Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, at the time King Prithu was enthroned by the great sages and brahmanas and declared to be the protector of the citizens, there was a scarcity of food grains. Citizens actually became skinny due to starvation. Therefore they came before the king and informed him of their real situation. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarne. The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Chatura Vanya Maya Shistam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha Tasya Kartam Apimam Vidya Kartam Avyam. That according to the 3 modes of material nature, there are corresponding 4 divisions of human society. And although I am the creator of the system, I am yet actually not involved in it. Krishna creates this system in order to provide the necessities of life with the least possible effort. Because the aim of life is to become Krishna conscious. But if one is distracted by so many anxieties due to the problems of maintaining the body, then one will not have the peace of mind or the necessary energy or the time in order to devote oneself to the process of becoming Krishna conscious. Therefore, there are some occupational duties given, but as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Anad bhavati bhutani parjana anasambhava jagnat bhavati parjanyo jagnat karma samudbhavam karma brahmodbhavan vidi brahmakshara samudbhavam. That all of the entities subsist on food grains, and food grain is produced from rain. And rain comes from the performance of one's prescribed duties, and one's prescribed duties are prescribed in the Vedas, and thus the all-pervading transcendence is situated in activities of sacrifice. In other words, if we want to get the necessities of life, of which the primary necessity of life is food, which we can include within the category of food, not only the food that we eat, but also there's food by breathing air, drinking water. These are all necessities of life under the category of food, and perhaps even sensual stimulation is also necessary to supply in order to survive. So these come from the performance of one's prescribed duties. Prescribed duty is ultimately the activities of sacrifice given by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Tasmad shastram pramadam te karya karma vyastito gyatva shastram vidanokta karma kartum ihahasi. That once you know what is duty and what is not duty by the scripture, the shastra, and knowing such duties, one should act so that one gradually becomes purified. In other words, although the conditioned soul may imagine himself to be the doer of activities, but actually all the soul is doing is observing and desiring according to the intelligence that's being supplied by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, either spiritual intelligence or material intelligence. That is, we're simply observers of the activities performed by this gross and subtle body, and according to the circumstances that we're under, therefore we're creating different, we're dovetailing our desires in different circumstances with desires arising from the three modes of material nature, or desires arising from the instructions of Krishna's representatives. But in any case, we're not actually the doer, nor are we actually even entangled by the activities of this material body. But what we are, being the observer, either we can observe things in Krishna consciousness and therefore desire that our activities are performed according to the instructions of Krishna as a matter of devotional service, or we can desire that our activities remain in the material platform under some mode of material nature in order to satisfy some desire for either security or for material prosperity. In this material world, there's only activities of security for this body or other bodies, or prosperity for this body or other bodies. But in any case, it has nothing to do with the soul. Anani ba nirgunadvat paramatmayam aviyam Sharira stopi kontiya na karoti nanalipyate. That those who can actually see with the eyes of eternity can see that the soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of material nature. Despite contact with the material body or Arjuna, the soul is neither entangled nor is he doing anything. So activities simply performed for material prosperity or material security are really superfluous for the soul. Because whether the activity is performed and one finds material prosperity or material failure or material security or material danger has nothing to do at all with the soul. The soul remains exactly transcendental, unaffected by any material circumstance. Therefore, it is considered shrama eva hi kevalam, as simply a waste of time to simply desire in the material sphere of activity. But even one may be covered by the material energy, forgetful of his relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Still, there is the Varna and Ashram system, by performing which one will gradually become elevated. That is, one will gradually wake up until one can understand that we are spiritual beings, that we are transcendental to the material nature, and therefore our activities should be dovetailed in Krishna consciousness. So Varnashram is really meant for those who are not awakened in Krishna consciousness, to help them come to that platform so that the desires can be situated in the realm of Krishna consciousness. And unless one comes to the platform of Krishna consciousness, one is simply wasting his time. In any case, the Varnashram system is made in such a way as to gradually elevate the soul's consciousness by the process of purification. For instance, in the spiritual realm of ashram, Krishna Bhagavad Gita says, Abhayam sattva samshuddhira jnana yoga vyavastiti dana dhamma srijagnascha swadhyaya tapa arjavam. The beginning of spiritual life is swadhyaya. Swa means self, dhyaya, to actually think about the real self. The real self is the soul, not the external body, or the subtle mind, intelligence of false ego. So to study about the self and his relationship with the rest of the material energy and the Supreme Self, that's the beginning of spiritual life, and that's what the realm of the brahmachari is supposed to be engaged in. And by understanding the self, being spiritual, and the process of realizing the self, then there is dana, dhammas, and jaga, or yaga. Then one will commit one's activities with this body to sacrifice, for instance. Sacrifice in this age specifically means Jagavai Vishnu, Jagnai Sankirtana Praya, Yanti Hi Sumedasa. That those who have some intelligence, they'll perform the Sankirtan Jaga. And what is that Sankirtan Jaga? Yari Deka Tari Kaha, Krishna Upadesh, Amar Agai Guruhana Tare Desh. That Sankirtan Jaga is that whoever we meet, we help them become Krishna conscious. That's the sacrifice in this age, whether by chanting Hare Krishna or repeating the words of the Shastra or somehow or another engaging people in the activities of devotional service. That's our sacrifice in this age, to dedicate our body, mind, and words and our life to the spreading of Krishna consciousness. Then one will be able to properly control the senses and the mind by such an engagement, because Krishna says Evam Bude Puram Budva Samstabhyatmanam Atmana Jahi Shatru Mahabaho Kamarupam Durasada. Knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and the intelligence, one should control the lower self by the higher, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So knowing oneself to be Jivara Swarupahoy Krishna Jivara Swarupahoy Krishnara Nityadas. Knowing oneself to be the eternal servant of Krishna, and not only the eternal servant of Krishna, but Gopi Bharata Padakamalayur Dasa Dasa Anudasa. Knowing oneself to be the servant of all of Krishna's servants, one will try to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission by helping others become Krishna conscious. So that is the actual engagement of the senses, and that's what it means, sense and mind control. And by such activity, one is sure to be associated with Krishna. Krishna Shakti Vinanaya Tara Bhavartana. The very activity of trying to spread Krishna consciousness is the activity which will empower one by Krishna to spread Krishna consciousness. No one can spread Krishna consciousness without being empowered by Krishna. And if we're trying to actually spread Krishna consciousness, then we'll be empowered by Krishna. And that means that we'll become Krishna conscious. We can't be Krishna conscious unless we're empowered by Krishna. There's no other way of being conscious of Krishna. And there's no other way of becoming conscious of Krishna other than trying to spread Krishna consciousness in this age. To perform the activities of Krishna consciousness means that we try to distribute Krishna consciousness, at least to ourselves. That is, this body and mind and words have to be engaged in some activity by which at least we become Krishna conscious. If not others becoming Krishna conscious. We can play tennis and ping pong and do all kinds of things, different activities, and expect that at the end we're going to become conscious of Krishna. We have to do the activities that will help us become conscious of Krishna, and those activities include helping others become Krishna conscious. And that is the greatest charity, dana. There's no other charity that equals to the charity of helping others revive their relation with Krishna. The whole world is suffering due to simply lack of consciousness of Krishna. And if one performs those activities of which are considered grihastha activities, but they're also everyone's activities. Everyone lives in a body, and everyone has expanded his bodily activities to society, to the country, etc. So when those same activities are dovetailed to helping others become Krishna conscious, then it releases us from this limited conception of life, that I am this body, this is my family, this is my nation, this is my human beings, I and mine. And what will be the result? Tapasya. One can tolerate the difficulties of living in the material world and remain fixed in consciousness of Krishna, not become unnecessarily disturbed by the pains and pleasures of material existence, the dualities of material existence. So that's called tapasya. Tapo divyam putraka yena sadvam shudyat tasmai brahma sokyam tvanam tam. Only by such tapasya, as Prabhupada used to say, how glorious are the Sankirtan devotees who are going out in all kinds of weather, heat and cold, and trying to distribute Krishna consciousness to others. And even in one's family life, one should try to distribute Krishna consciousness to the wife and children or husband or friends. And if one can remain unattached, Shaknoti haiva yakshodum praksharira vimokshana kama krodo bhavan vegam suyukta sa sukhinara. One who's not disturbed shaknoti haiva yakshodum praksharira vimokshana. One who can tolerate the urges of the senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is a yogi and he is happy in this world. So this is called tolerance. And by such tolerance, one's Krishna consciousness will become nishta, steady. Matra sparshas tukondya shitoshna sukadugada agama payo nintyas tam titikshasva parada. One will become titikshasva. One will become tolerant and steady, and then one's Krishna consciousness can actually deepen. Abhaya sattva samushudira. One will realize oneself as Brahman, as the eternal servant of Krishna, and therefore become completely fearless as he sees Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Saramahatma Sudurlabha. Everything is under Krishna's control. There's no need to be fearful. Naiva dvije paradaratya vaitaranyas tvarvira gaina mahamrita magnachitak. So cetato vimukha cetas indriyaratan maya sukhaya bharam udvato vimudan. Prahlad Maharaj says, every time I chant your glories, I simply merge into an ocean of bliss. One who can see Krishna everywhere, who sees everything under Krishna's control, who sees everything is perfectly arranged for one's service to Krishna, then he's always in transcendental bliss, and there's no question of any kind of fear, because one knows that one is always protected by Krishna. And sattva jnana yoga vivyastiti. Then the knowledge, potency, chit shakti, one is able to see everyone and everything perfectly in their relationship to Krishna. And one is always sattva samushudira, always purified by the internal energy of Krishna, always situated in Ladini Shakti, and completely in ecstasy at 24 hours a day. So this is the goal of the Varnashram system. The 4 orders to maintain oneself physically are necessary insofar as that we don't want to become distracted from our business of becoming Krishna conscious. And the more one becomes elevated towards the perfection of life, then less and less one becomes anxious about one's material situation. One is no longer concerned about money for eating or sleeping or mating or defending. One's economic development becomes minimized. Yadricha lava shantusto dvanvatito nimatsaraha samaksiraval siddhalcha kripapi nanabadite. One who is satisfied by gains which come from their own accord. So the devotee can live happily, not in anxiety that his eating or sleeping or even his mating or defending will not be adequately taken care of, because Krishna will take care of everything perfectly without any extraneous effort on the part of the soul. If one is surrendered to Krishna, then Krishna will provide everything naturally. And therefore, that is the platform of Brahminical life, of liberation from material anxiety. And before we come to that platform, we have to perform some work, but it should be for the real necessities of life, not simply for extraneous things which simply deviate the mind from Krishna consciousness. Therefore, the sacrifice was made under the care of the Brahmins so that rain could come, so that food could be grown, so that the real necessities of life would be provided for the Shudras, the Vaishyas, the Kshatriyas, the Brahmins, and people could live to develop their Krishna consciousness. They could develop the ashrams, not simply to expand the varnas unlimitedly, to have disobedient Shudras, greedy Vaishyas, exploitive Kshatriyas, and speculative Brahmanas. This is Kali Yuga, where everyone is less than a Shudra. So unless one realizes how rain is coming from the demigods due to sacrifices to Vishnu, and these are the real necessities of life, so that one can maintain the body and the soul together to advance towards spiritual awakening. Without that understanding, then everyone is simply wasting their time. And the perfection of that spiritual advancement means that one is able to see the soul, and when the soul is awakened, it doesn't really matter what material situation one is under. Whether one is driving a Rolls Royce to Vaikuntha or one is driving a Volkswagen, it makes no difference. The fact that we're going to Vaikuntha, that's what makes the difference, not what vehicle we're driving in to go there. So one who can see that, Vidya Vinaya Sambhane Brahmani Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Swapake Cha Pandita Samadarshana. One can see all of the entities as souls, and the super soul situated within them. He knows the real important thing I can do in service to any living entity is to help them somehow or another understand what is the process of becoming Krishna conscious. What one has to do practically in this world, and both to maintain the body and the soul, as well as engage with this body and the soul in the activities of devotion to Krishna, so that one can have a meaningful life, a productive life, a successful life. Without understanding these things, everyone is simply wasting their time. So I'll stop there. Any questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, you shared that the soul has only two functions. It witnesses and it desires. It has nothing to do with the activities which are there. However, when we look at the material desires, we tend to believe that that's an output of our habits. So that's so mechanical that all my desires, if I'm attuned to sleeping for 8 hours, I will develop a desire to sleep, and so on and so forth. So how do we reconcile that desire is an eternal function of the soul and it's not some material cause and effect?
Well, desire is there. Even this desire is, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Nadate kasyate papam, na papam sukritim vibhu, na jnana navritam jnana, tena muyanti jantava. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. So out of ignorance, we think we are the material desires. But actually, their desires, Prabhupada writes, is simply a subtle form of conditioning for the soul. So those are not our desires, they're desires being supplied by the illusory energy, by the material energy. We're simply dovetailing our desires with those desires. But we can also, by hearing, we can develop a different set of desires, spiritual desires, coming from the simple succession. And when we dovetail our desires with those desires, then gradually that spiritual potency of those desires will be awakened within us. We'll be able to realize the strength of those desires. As Prabhupada used to write, by the strong desire of my spiritual master to spread this Krishna consciousness, therefore I'm acting as his instrument. So the more we practice dovetailing our desires with the desires of the previous acharyas, then gradually those desires will awaken within our heart and will become protected by those desires. Those desires will become manifested in our body, mind, and words. Simply a question of which desires, of course, because we're conditioned without, and if we associate with condition a certain way, we associate with certain persons, then gradually we'll develop their desires. But if we associate with the transcendentalists, that Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahor Vimuktes Didmo Dwaram Yoshita Sangi Sangam. As we associate with the transcendentalists, then gradually we'll get their association, and those desires, their desires will awaken within our heart.
Maharaj, my second question is, you quoted Prahlad Maharaj's verse, and then subsequently you mentioned that, the Lord protects under all the conditions. But somebody who has achieved a Brahmabhut status, where is a need for any kind of protection? Because any which way, there is a cessation in him as far as material desires are concerned.
Well, just reaching Brahmabhuta or any other stage, Arudya Kricha Ye Ne Arendakshave Muktamaninas Vishuddha Buddhaya Aruru Krichena Param Padam Tada Patamtyada Nadrita Yushmarangrayaha. As long as one is not fully conscious of his relation with Krishna, then one's intelligence is said to be avishuddhaya, impure. And because of that impure intelligence, one will be drawn back again into the illusory energy. Actually, as long as the intelligence is not pure, then the consciousness can't be clear. And as long as the consciousness is not clear, one will again be faced with the activities of material activities. The Brahmabhuta is not success. It's simply to find out who I'm not is not sufficient to know who I actually am. So unless I'm engaged in the activities of pure devotional service, I won't have the spiritual protection from the illusory energy. Yes.
Much grateful for this very organized lecture. My question is, how does one overcome, we talked about abhaya and samshuddhi, so how does one overcome fear of death and fear of inefficiency in service, especially after getting into Krishna consciousness? It frequently comes up, fear of death and inefficiency while in service.
Well, generally speaking, death is usually the more powerful fear that we have. So we have to realize we're eternal. Without realizing our relation with Krishna, we won't realize that we're eternal. So as long as we think we're this body or the mind, then we'll be fearful of its dying, so-called dying. Of course, it's already dead. It's only due to our presence that it appears to be alive. It's already dead, so there's no question of the dead body dying. But we have to become alive. Unless we become alive, then we'll always be afraid of dying. Because we're practically dead already anyhow. Soul is practically in a sleeping state, so it's practically dead. So devotional service is such that it'll awaken us up out of the dead. So we're being awakened from the dead. Everyone else is really already dead. Their body is dead, and the soul is dead, and they're simply being afflicted by the fear of death, illusory death. As far as inefficiency, because we're distracted by material desires, therefore we don't perform a devotional service in pure Krishna consciousness. So there's a stage called anartha nivritti, and gradually by chanting Hare Krishna offenselessly and dovetailing our activities completely in service to Krishna and the devotees, then gradually our inefficiency will diminish. Anything else?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj, for giving very nice lecture. But the point here, the verse, it is said, Praja Niranne. Is the Praja, the people are not getting the food grains. So the Praja is already engaged in performing sacrifices, but Vena was very forceful against, and he forced not to perform sacrifices. So because of this not performing sacrifices, the earth also stopped producing food grains. But now King Prithu is enthroned, and because of the protection given by Prithu Maharaj, Praja, the people are naturally, they are performing sacrifices. Now they are performing sacrifices, and so much rain is also coming. but still the food grain is not produced. And the people are, see, now they are, see, complete lean and thin, complete weak. They have become very weak. Then Prithu Maharaj was thinking that this is the fault of earth, earth, the goddess earth, that she is not producing. Now she is getting the share of sacrifice, and sufficient rains is also see going on, but still the earth is not giving. So the point was that the earth now digested, because she sustained the food grains, stopped, but now she cannot produce because she has digested. So then Prithu Maharaj, she will suggest Prithu Maharaj, I cannot produce, now you take in the form of milk, all these things. So much science is there.
Yes. Also, she didn't want to give any food grains because she didn't want to feed the demons. He didn't want to feed the demons, asuras.
No, that was the point at that time, that she sustained, she did not produce. But now she wants to produce, but she cannot produce
And
because it is
she
digested.
becomes a calf, and so many calves and cows come to milk them. Anything else? Yes.
Very well.
Thank you, Maharaj, for nice various points. So one point I like that we should spread Krishna consciousness. This is a real desire of a devotee. What is the real meaning of spreading Krishna consciousness? Giving the Krishna consciousness somebody, he once comes to temple, or comes to, the Krishna consciousness, again need some guideline. The spiritual leader, those are leadership. In that case, suppose in the purport that if anything comes that should be taken proper care. So in that sense, what is the real meaning of the spreading Krishna consciousness?
Convince people that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that they should engage their words, their intelligence, their wealth, their lives in Krishna's service, according to Krishna's directions and the directions of his representatives. That's Krishna consciousness, spreading it. What else are you thinking? We have to practically engage people's wealth, their words, their intelligence, their lives in Krishna's service. Then we can actually say that we're spreading Krishna consciousness. And the basis of that is actually convince others and ourselves that Krishna actually is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that he is the owner of everything here, everything is meant for his pleasure, and that only by doing that can we benefit ourselves or anyone else. Everything else is not very auspicious in this age. Okay, thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.